Good evening, dear pioneers, and welcome back to Everlasting Summer. Last time we were here, we had played the route for Ulyana. It was not really a very fun experience. Lots of complaining, mostly. Anyway, yeah. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Everlasting Summer. We are doing Slavya's route. I had 12 minutes of just nothing because I had to speed my way along to the first option I didn't do. And we're here. So, this one was a little confusing, but I think I got it. So you had to get the cards with Slavya, bet with Alyssa, and then not win. And then go to the bus stop after the tournament, whatever. And we should be meeting Slavya. I was about to head back to camp when all of a sudden I caught a noise behind the gates. Who is it this time? Man, this building's so creepy looking. Near the clubhouse, it seemed like somebody was walking down the path to the forest. It was so dark that I could see nothing but blurred shadow. I wondered who could be out so late at night. A pioneer breaching discipline? Tisk tisk. I followed the mysterious shadow rapidly, but still carefully. Like a ninja in the night. I was moving from path to path, and after a while I found myself in the depths of the forest, finally losing sight of the stranger. I almost said losing track. I mean, same thing, right? Maybe I should turn back? The trees parted before me, and a magnificent view of a small forest lake struck my eyes. Okay, what's going on? Dancing in the night. And then I noticed Slavya. She was skipping and fluttering about, letting her neckerchief loose and her shirt fly up in the air. The whole scene seemed even more fantastic than my own presence in this camp. Slavya looked like a spirit of the forest, or perhaps a nymph. She looked so natural, more like an ancient goddess than a human being. I remembered all the theological theories which I read some time ago. This reminded me of Pantheism? The idea that God is in all that is, everything that we see around. So, kind of like Shinto religion, right? Where they believe that there's spirits in everything. In anything, like there could be spirits in a rock or like a grain of rice. What if it were not the aliens or a time warp, but divine providence that brought me here? Indeed, Slavya mentioned that she loves nature. Maybe a little too much. So it turns out that even she's an enigma, isn't she? Yeah. I honestly thought Slavya was going to be the most normal out of everyone, but apparently not. She is a nymph in the forest. Do not disturb. Slavya went into the water. I was ashamed, but I just couldn't take my eyes off her. Semyon, you need to look away. This is not for your eyes. She's going to gorge him out if you don't. Forbidden. Silvery moonlight reflected off her wet skin, making Slavya look like an ancient Greek statue. The Venus de Milo, maybe? This scene was so fabulous that there was no room for carnal lust, only sublime admiration of true beauty. Bro, I would have been judging you hella hard if you're gonna get horny over this. I was simply admiring the perfection of Slavya's form and forgetting everything else. Okay. Maybe this isn't hell but heaven. A branch treacherously snapped under my foot. Slavya turned around, but there was no way to recognize me in the darkness of the night. Of course, it's always something snapping because no one looks where they're walking. Or at least so it seemed. She rapidly rushed out of the lake, but put her clothes on... Why did I say but? She rapidly rushed out of the lake, put on her clothes in a hurry, and vanished from sight into the forest. I quietly went after her. Dude! Why? Just leave her alone. Slavya was quietly trailing among the trees, choosing the easiest paths and gracefully avoiding sheared bushes, pits, and snags. You're like a super stalker right now. It was a hard job to keep pace with her. Moreover, I definitely didn't want to be caught. You don't want to be caught, but you're chasing after her like a psycho. Like, you could be anyone, in her opinion, you're just scaring the crap out of her. Firstly, peeping is just no good, and secondly, in fact, it just remains to be seen what she was doing here. She was enjoying her time in nature. It's not that difficult. Although it somehow seemed to be innocent enough, it didn't seem to have anything to do with my presence in this world. It was just innocent. It was nothing worth spying on. There's nothing worth spying on, but I followed her a little bit. You did follow her, right? Or is my brain just not doing its reading comprehension skill very good? Probably not. It's probably not working right now. I'm not surprised considering how badly I read when I was playing Soul Void. At last we came out at the square. Slavya stopped and turned around to face me. Oh, no, I was right. He was following her. Little weirdo. Did you think I didn't notice you? I was a bit confused, but I put on a mask of visible calmness. Why are you confused? How are you confused? Not to mention, you just came out of the forest right behind her. So, like, not only did she notice that you were watching her, you followed her, so it's not that difficult to put the two things together. How long ago? I'm not sure. Slavya came closer. 5 minutes ago, maybe? So even there at the lake? What lake are you talking about? Well... Slavya seemed to be sincerely surprised, so I simply couldn't figure out whether she was pretending that nothing had happened, or... Well, never mind. I made up my mind to behave like a gentleman, as gentlemanly as was possible in these circumstances, and said nothing. All right. Unexpectedly easily, she agreed. What a beautiful night. Slavya took a seat on a bench and looked at the sky. I guess such nights are common here. Well, probably. Why so uncertain? I don't know. I just got lost in thought. Thinking about what? She stared at me like she was looking for something on my face, but then went back to stargazing. Now and then I fall into such a mood at night. During the day, I'm wrapped up in work with no time to relax, while at night it's so quiet here. If it wasn't for the crickets and the night birds, one would feel like being face to face with the universe. For some reason, I didn't think of Slavya as someone who would talk about such matters. As for me, it's even too quiet here. Is it? Yes, really. Anything wrong with that? Well... Alright. She stood up quickly and fixed her skirt. It's time to go to bed. Good night. I watched her walk away. Our talk might have been about nothing, but seems to me it had some deep and secret meaning which could appear only here, only next to Slavya. Seems like even in my situation, such moments of peace and sincerity are absolutely necessary. They make me feel united with the universe. I mean, you just watched her being, like, odd in nature. You just watched her do something weird. I'd even say vital, especially now. I'm not sure how much time I spent sitting there, but after a little while, I started to feel sleepy. I'd rather help Slavya. Always choose the lesser of two evils, they say. Well, of three in this case. Slavya wasn't evil at all, so my choice was obvious. Any rational being keeps his house clean, but I usually perceive house cleaning as somewhat akin to gym workouts. Yeah, it's good for you, but not my sort of thing at all. However, I like the idea of painting benches or of helping two future geniuses of Russian or Soviet science even less. There are about a dozen pioneers at the square. Where did they all come from, I wonder? I approached Slavya. Hi there. Oh, hi. You've come to help? Well, not of my own free will, of course. I thought it over again. I see. Take this broom. Your area is right next to the monument. Frankly speaking, there was nothing to sweep there. It seemed pretty clean to me, though some rubbish was still lying around. After sweeping for a while, I came back to Slavya, who was sitting on a bench and taking a break. What a nice day, eh? Yeah, though it's a bit too hot. She shaded her eyes with her hand and looked up at the sky. You're like a tireless worker of communist labor. Oh, come on. I just like to help others. That's good. And what about you? What about me? Well, it seems to me that you find community service a bit of a burden. Well, probably. Why is that? I don't really know. Seriously, she can't expect me to just unload all my ideas concerning this point on her. She might drown in them, God forbid. Maybe you just don't like company? That's actually quite possible. There was some truth in Slavya's words. I suppose that she was good at reading other people's minds. Or at least at reading mine. Though, how can that be possible if even I find it hard to understand myself at times? I mean, some people can understand you better than you know yourself, so... And you're not exactly... a closed book, Semyon. What are you going to do when this session is over? What do you mean? Well, are you going to enter college, or do you want to master a profession? In the USSR, a person finishing high school typically had to choose between either getting a college degree, tongue-tied. Typically achieving a status of engineer or scientist, or going into a secondary vocational school, thus mastering a profession. I've already achieved grand mastery at all of my professions, watching anime and surfing the net. I don't know yet, what about you? We have a small farm back home, so I want to help my parents there. Sounded pretty strange. Are there any private farms in the USSR, where all the farming has to be collective? But I decided not to go into details. And what are your parents doing? My parents were not a good subject for discussion. It's not that my parents are not good, quite the opposite, they're kind-hearted people. But it's not the right time for such a discussion. My father works at the local council and my mother's a teacher. That wasn't actually true. More like a half-truth. Cool. She really seemed to consider that a cool thing. I guess so. The conversation had reached a dead end, so I was trying to take my eyes off Slavya and keep gazing under my feet, up in the sky, or just looking around. You know, I'm pretty sure you'll also be fine. Slavya looked at me thoughtfully. Now what was that for? And what was that also about? Thanks? I mumbled. But what do you mean? I suppose that you happen to be too pessimistic at times. Isn't that way too, straightforward? Maybe. But you're gonna be alright. Maybe. After this conversation, I felt ill at ease. On the one hand, there was nothing special in her words. In general, almost any person in Slavya's shoes would come to a similar conclusion. Nevertheless, I felt, and not for the first time, like she could see right through me. So, let's get to cleaning. Uh-huh. I didn't really know just how to emote that. She smiled and took the broom. I never thought that cleaning would bring such a deep pleasure. No, I wasn't upset because of this conversation. On the contrary, I was glad to hear that from her. For the first time ever, somebody was discussing my life without criticizing me, without giving any stupid advice based on their own personal experience, without intending to go through my head, and without making some far-fetched conclusions. I was just glad that somebody supported me. No, that's not quite right. I was just glad that Slavya supported me. In a short while, the music played around the camp, calling us for lunch. I put away the broom with a sigh of relief and a sense of accomplishment, and went to the canteen. Why would you come to a dance party if you'd rather sit tidily in a corner? Okay, but just a little bit. That's the spirit. She reached out her hand to me. We were standing in the middle of the dancing crowd. Well, in fact, it was me who was standing. Slavya was warming up, swaying to the beat. I was already blaming myself for agreeing to this uncomfortable proposal. Okay, here I am, on the road again, and now what? I examined the dancing pioneers around me. Nope, I am not prepared for this. The music stopped abruptly. Some people were still standing under the monument, but the majority stopped. Standing or dancing? Dancing. Don't panic. The leader went to the DJ's panel and adjusted something there. Next song, ladies invite gentlemen. I looked at Slavya. She stretched her hand out to me with a smile. You shouldn't refuse a girl. We danced for a few minutes. Her chest heaved faster and her face blushed more and more. Slavya stared into my eyes. I tried to look away at the dancing pioneers or at my feet or somewhere else. It was a strange feeling. My whole body shuddered from time to time, but it was a pleasant shudder, without any hint of uneasiness or shame. My mind became miraculously calm. I realized that I didn't want to let this girl go, and I'm ready to dance with her forever. Hopping next to us, Ulyana stopped for a moment and smirked. Maybe I was seeing things, but I couldn't get rid of the thought that the insolent girl was trying to hint at something. I made a frightening face, but she was already gone. Is something wrong? Slavya asked quietly. Everything's fine. I mean, everything's great. I hadn't started stammering yet, but I was about to. You're so tense. A little, I said honestly. Boys don't like to dance. Guess so. She didn't say anything, but just smiled. Ooh, I see some area that didn't get colored in properly. Like right here. See, that's where his face is supposed to be, and could see right through his head. There's nothing in there. Semyon's head is just filled with hot air. The song eventually finished. I was still holding Slavya, but she easily slipped out of my grasp. Thank you for the dance. I should thank you. Oops. I should thank you. I just stood and stared at her for some time. The next track started playing. One more? No, I think I'll rest a little. I tried to leave the square as soon as possible. I don't remember how I ended up at the beach. Why did I run away? 'Cause you're embarrassed? It looked exactly like running away. The dance was nice and Slavya was pleased. But something wasn't right. I felt restless just thinking about the ball. Maybe I just lost my grasp on the situation and got emotional. That happens rarely. I always tried to behave and calmly assess the situation. But did I manage it this time? I sat on the sand and looked at the river. The full moon was hanging far above the water. Memories overwhelmed me. Memories of my embarrassment when I was a small child. I tried to dance, but I couldn't do it. I was ashamed. I'm 6 years old. Me and my father are fishing. I cast my fishing rod clumsily and wait. 1 minute, 2, 10, no fish bite. Meanwhile, my father gets one after another. I don't like fishing. It takes too long. I'm not patient enough. How do you do that? He explains, but now I don't remember all the details. I'm 9 years old. A dark, incomplete building near our country house full of ghosts, vampires, or maybe just hobos. And an unstable wooden ladder to the second floor. Hanging above the abyss, the hole to the basement. I'm scared, but I still climb up and down this ladder every day. A brick falls on my foot and I lose a toenail. Ow, Jesus! I'm 12 years old. My first victory in a video game tournament. We play a console fighting game. An imaginary audience applauds my astonishing victory. I'm 15. I score several wonderful goals with my heel and a wonderful shot from 30 meters away right into the upper corner. 17. My first love. Transcendent images, a shadow slipping away and vanishing in the city haze. I can't catch her among the buildings and corners. The following memories become more clear but far less vivid. The images of my childhood and youth that I saw were unclear. They lacked details and I couldn't quite see the faces of people. Sometimes they just looked a lot like canvas, covered with spilled paint. But the feelings of those hazy images were so much warmer than those of my more recent memories. There you are. Slavya leaned over me. I didn't get a fright. Why did you leave so soon? Just felt like being alone for a bit. It was like I hid in a shell. There was no outer world for me, and I responded the same way to all stimuli. I was like the 3 monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Isn't it just beautiful here? Slavya looked at the river. Yeah, it is. How about one more dance? No thanks, I'm fine. Deep inside I knew I shouldn't be so sharp with Slavya, but I was like a puppet on the string, forced to say things I would have never said under other circumstances. What are you thinking about? Nothing. You can't think about nothing. Yeah, he can. His head is filled with hot air. She pouted her lips, but smiled right above that, letting me know she wasn't offended. You're always thinking about something, even if you don't notice it. Maybe. So, what are you thinking about now? About owls. Think they're pretty neat. I said the first thing that came to my mind. Why owls? She laughed. I don't know. Have you ever seen any owls? Of course I have. What a silly question. Do you like them? They're just a bird like any other. A night bird, Slavya specified. Yeah, a night bird. A night bird. I imagine an owl, a little feathered box with huge blinking eyes. Are you a night owl? What? You know, there are day larks and night owls. Some like to get up early and some like to sleep in. Her words brought me back to reality. I pictured my dusty room full of junk, a mountain of unwashed plates on the table, guitar rotting in the corner, necktie hanging from the lamp, and the pinnacle of all this, the heap of dirty socks under the bed. Aw man, dude, your room must smell. I was indeed a night owl. Night was my time. But somehow I was managing to get up early in this camp. I know.
So what are you?
A night owl, I guess. I like to sleep.
And I am a daylark. The earlier you get up, the more you can do during the day.
There's really nothing urgent for me to do, so I don't see any difference between day and night. It's just quieter and calmer during the night. Slavya, don't you have any problems at all in your life?
What do you mean?
She wondered. You're always so joyful, so ready to help, so eager to start doing something. It's like nothing can upset you.
Why?
She laughed.
I'm just an ordinary person.
That's right. Just an ordinary person in an ordinary place. I sometimes think that I'm the strange one here.
Do you like the camp?
I don't mean only the camp. In the previous, I stumbled. I shouldn't speak so frankly even with her. At home too. I think that I'm not like the others. It's not where I belong.
Oh, stop that. It's silly to think so.
I was closing myself off from the rest of the world just a moment ago, and I was opening my heart to this girl. What's happening to me? No, really. You wouldn't pay any attention to me under any other circumstances. I'm so different from you. I'm lazy, unsociable, and have no outstanding talents. I would be the last person you would notice in the crowd of a large city. Though for me, even going outside is rare.
Semyon, you scare me.
She looked at me seriously. I got embarrassed but didn't avert my eyes. I wanted to say gaze. Am I wrong?
Of course. You are you. There are no other people like you. You should just have some self-esteem and patience, and you can do anything. No doubt about it.
I looked at the sky. If only everything could be as simple as you say.
It's not difficult at all. Let's start right now.
Start what?
Changing.
Just like that? How do you imagine we can do that?
We should do something useful.
For instance?
Well...
She thought for a moment.
Let's clean up the square. The ball has already finished.
Just the two of us? Would we be able to do all the work?
There isn't that much to do. The first step is the most important.
I can't argue with her on that point, but taking down the lighting from the trees in the dark, moving heavy audio equipment and sweeping, none of that was on my to-do list. But I didn't know how to nicely refuse her. Maybe we can do it tomorrow? With everyone?
Why put it off until tomorrow? Wouldn't it be wonderful to stand in a clean square during the lineup?
First of all, I don't even like lineups in general. Second of all, at least there would be light during the time that you're cleaning up. Hey, I understand you, but this is too much. Like, I mean, you can sweep and stuff during the night, but like taking down the other stuff, it seems more safer to do it when there's daylight. Slavya thought for a moment.
Yes, looks like you're right.
Even I can be right sometimes. And she can be wrong.
Then...
She stretched and yawned.
Let's just sleep on it then.
A nice idea, but I wanted to talk more. Isn't it too early?
No.
Slavya objected critically.
You'll sleep all day tomorrow then.
Tell me a bedtime story then. I blurted out the first thing that came to mind.
I only know the ones I read in books. You must know them too.
Maybe I do. What a failure.
Shall we go?
She stretched out her hand to me. I'll stay here for a while longer. I need some fresh air. You can go. Good night.
Good night.
Slavya ran away. I wanted to enjoy my total defeat first. I couldn't stand being with her even a minute longer after that brilliant idea. Bedtime stories? What in the world? That's how the things are. You try to have a casual chat with a girl and it turns into a complete flop. What an embarrassment. I stared into the night sky. The stars, those small lights of distant suns, blinked prickly as if laughing at me. Ha ha. I turned over and buried my face in the sand. Ew. After a moment, I realized that was another one of my bright ideas, about on par with asking for bedtime stories. I stood up, spitting grit, and went to the leader's cabin. His head is filled with hot air because he can't function when in front of a girl. My back itched all the way. Not only my back, my whole body. No wonder. I haven't had a bath for several days. Well, it's really hot here during the daytime, so you sweat like a pig. I should find some soap and a towel. I can find everything in Olga Demetrina's cabin. After a couple of minutes, I was again at the square with a bag of bathing accessories. I have to find the bathhouse now. Bath, 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 bath. Fill the entire cabin with soap. It was easy. The building was just on the edge of the forest. It really is the best place for a bathhouse. I think there was no Blair Witch inside, but the lights were still on. And whose bright idea is it to have a bath at midnight? I muttered below my breath. You? There's only one problem. Is it a boy or a girl? It's just a bunch of squirrels. In the first place, we could just have a bath together without any worries. I'm not fond of public baths, but I can cope with them this time. In the second case, I would have to wait or to scratch myself the whole night through. Who knows how long I have to wait. I peeped into the window, but couldn't see anything because of the steam. Suddenly, Slavya appeared right before me as if from a thick fog. And once again, Semyon is marked as a pervert. Naturally, she was naked, just like anyone else in the bath would be. Dumbstruck, I stared at her. I had never seen a naked girl so close, even through the glass. Oh my. My organ reacted as it should. Nerve impulses traveled from my eyes down my body. It seemed like I couldn't leave my observation point no matter what, even if a war broke out. Whatever, you would frickin' book it if, Olga came in. But Slavya didn't notice me. She was watching herself leisurely, rinsing her head, rubbing her body with a sponge and pouring out water from a bucket on herself. Then she started to wash her hair. Ooh. I can't imagine how much time she needs to wash it completely, but minutes flew like seconds. That's how immersed I was in the sight. You're so gross, Semyon. You should be ashamed of yourself. Finally, she finished washing, sighed with satisfaction, and walked to the door. I managed to come to my senses just at the moment she went into the changing room and I left to hide in the nearby bushes, like a criminal. The best thing to do was not to tempt fate and leave, but I realized that too late. Slavya appeared on the porch after just a moment, stood there for a while enjoying the night breeze, and walked in the direction of my hideout. I had a dozen excuses in my mind, but she went by without even looking at the bushes I was hiding in. Looks like I'm lucky. I cautiously got out, went to Olga Demetrina's cabin, completely forgetting my intention to have a bath. I was totally exhausted and wanted to just fall in bed and doze off. I'm surprised that he forgot that he needs to take a shower, considering that he went through that entire experience with you-know-what. You think he'd been like, oh god, I need to take a cold shower. I was totally exhausted and wanted to just fall in bed and doze off. My eyes couldn't wait and were closing from time to time. It was dangerous even to blink. I still didn't know the camp well enough to walk there with my eyes closed. You're so lucky that Slavya danced with your stinky ass. Suddenly Slavya appeared before me.
Are you going to sleep?
Well, yes. Right this moment I remembered the sight in the bathhouse and averted my eyes shyly. And you?
I'm cleaning up.
She took the broom out from behind her back. Slavya with the broom in the empty square at night looked like a witch from a children's fairy tale.
What?
Nothing. Is it really a good idea to clean the square after a bath?
And how do you know that I had a bath?
I physically felt the fear taking over my body. Cold sweat started to run down my back. My thoughts froze, so I couldn't think of any excuses. Your hair is damp. You smell like flowers. Not that you don't always smell like flowers. Slavya just stared at me in surprise. It looked like my life depended on this answer. Right then and there, I just wish I could drop dead. Well, your hair is wet.
Oh, you're right.
I wanted the earth to swallow me up, so I would vanish from this world just as suddenly and irreversibly as I had vanished from mine.
Are you going to have a bath too?
Me? Well... Slavya looked at the bag in my hands. Yeah, I am. So, good night. I turned around and darted back towards the bathhouse. What a disaster. How shameful. I walked slowly, trying to curse myself for all that happened. I shouldn't have peeped in the first place. But if I peep anyway, then I must pay more attention and think of an excuse beforehand. Ugh. It didn't take much time to wash myself. You sure about that, buddy? It looked like the night made its own ball or possibly a concert. The stars were the lights, the birds and insects were an orchestra, an owl hooting somewhere was its director. The sound of wind in the trees was the applause of the audience. The night looked much more beautiful when you stand in the forest clean and fresh. Suddenly I heard a noise in the bushes nearby. I shivered but didn't get very scared. It may be a squirrel or other animal. Nevertheless, I should check it out. I mean, you don't have to check it out. I went to the bushes, but didn't find anything or anyone suspicious. It just seemed... With a clean body and a calm spirit, I went to the leader's cabin. Olga Dmitrievna was already asleep. I went to bed without taking my clothes off and covered myself with a blanket. I couldn't fall asleep for a long time, remembering naked Slavya whose image could not be eclipsed by thoughts about finding answers. You're still shameful, though. Shaking my head. I was going to head to breakfast when somebody knocked on the door. It was Slavya.
Good morning. Have you seen Olga Dmitrievna?
I stared at her
I stared at her opie. They had just mesmerized me too much the day before.
Sweating.
Semyon?
Slavya was looking at me worryingly, but I still couldn't manage to shift my gaze away from her babies.
Is something wrong?
On the contrary, everything is just okay.
Olga Dmitrievna?
I don't know. She wasn't here when I woke up. I finally managed to control myself.
Fine, I still have one thing to do, so see you at breakfast.
Slavya smiled, waved at me, and ran away. Still, regardless, the morning was shining and beautiful. Because the first thing that I saw was the most beautiful thing in the world. The bright sun was shining over the space and time displaced pioneer Camp Sovyonok, warming its residents and filling them with energy to spend the day productively. Or in my case, to waste it in futile efforts to find an explanation for everything happening here, and thinking about Slavya's hot blood. There was an unusually large crowd near the canteen. Of course, there was no other place in the camp that pioneers loved as much as a canteen, but why were they all crowding on the porch? I came closer and found out what was going on. Okay, so you know how in a previous time I didn't really know what the hell this was? And it took me way too long to realize that it is Olga and Semyon's cabin. And it's hard to tell because it's very small, but when I look closely, it looks like that's Olga wearing a hat. And the other one is probably Semyon with a bag over his head, because it's necessary. But this entire time, I thought it was completely different people. Because I'm dumb, and I can't pick up the hints every time I went to the cabin. But the entire time, I thought it was just, like, other NPCs that were there. Because I thought that was a girl with white on top of her hair and red on the bottom, and then just like some random kid who likes to wear a bag over their head because, you know, kids are weird. No, I was wrong. I shouted after her. Thank you. She gave me one of her sweet smiles before leaving. Uh-oh, okay. That was, not asking about what she had in her hands after working in the infirmary. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for now because, the endings tend to take a bit of time. And I feel like I got a pretty decent amount of stuff, but there's also, like, I always feel that way, but then I also gotta remember that I spend, like, chunks of time just sitting there letting it fast forward. Anyway, I like Slavya. She's still pretty normal despite, you know, that nymph thing happening that may or may not have actually happened. I don't know. Semyon's still just being a little weirdo. He never stops being a weirdo. Though Slavya is definitely one of the ones that I do like because she hasn't done anything to make me mad. Or make me go, what the frick? What's your issue? It's Semyon who's making me feel that way. Like, why were you peeping? You knew! Why didn't you just walk away? Why'd you even look to begin with? You could have just knocked. That's what normal people do, they knock. Semyon's just a big pervert. I still kind of, like, I know I've mentioned that I've liked Xenia, but I mean, my favorite girl's always gonna be Violetta. I don't know how you say it. Viola. She's gonna always be my main girl because, I mean, have you seen her? It's just like, she's the most mature one within the whole camp. It's too bad we don't get to see more of her personality. She's basically just like the kind of quirky doctor with a mature figure. There isn't really much to say, honestly, because Slavya is really just like that normal. I mean, I do have questions about the beginning, like what was that about? The whole dance in nature thing. And I feel bad that her route is pretty much just, you know, Semyon being weird and peeping on her the whole time. in previous videos, I'm pretty sure it was the very first route, which is the very first videos that I did for this game. Semyon falls on her, and he kind of just stays there. It's basically, everything to do with Slavya is basically just Semyon just being all oogly woogly. Saw her basically naked in the forest. Saw her actually naked near the forest. Landed on her in the library and didn't get off. And I feel like he did in fact crush her, but like, she's resilient. And then I don't know what's gonna happen after. Like, I really have no idea how these bad and good ends are gonna turn, because she is so incredibly normal. And Sammy's just a weirdo. Most of my excitement is has always been towards the mine scene. So I'm excited to see what happens with her in that one, since we had scared Alyssa, pretty okay Lena. Oleana kind of came out of nowhere. And then when it was just Semyon, he was also kind of scared. Had to protect himself. Deal with that all by himself. I hope you enjoyed this one. Next video is definitely gonna end up having the bad ending. And I don't know if it's gonna end up combined with the good ending, but we'll see, because a lot of the time they feel pretty long. So, who knows? Have a good day and a good night.
Goodbye.